Hertz. I'm the Meraki product specialist in Cisco. I'm based here in the Philippines, and then Drea is also here to help us with the Q&A. Is also another Meraki product specialist here in Cisco Philippines. I represent both the Philippines and Indonesia, so I'm gonna do this entire webinar in English as much as possible, so that so that everybody in the audience can understand this session. So we have a lot to cover in this session, so I hope to we're gonna use the entire 1 hour just to give you some warning in advance, because today is a topic that's pretty comprehensive as far as Meraki and Cisco-Meraki is concerned. It's really about SASE. So the objective of today's session is for us to give you an overview of what SASE is all about and how we enable our customers' journey into SASE from where they are today. But first of all, let's take a look at the agenda. So I'd like to give you an overview of Cisco-Meraki first, give you a textbook definition of what SASE is. Why do SASE with Cisco-Meraki? And then we're going to delve into the other services that kind of completes the entire SASE picture, not just Cisco Meraki, but also the other Cisco security services that's part of the SSE or Security Services Edge Solution, and Zero Trust Network Access. And then we're going to summarize everything synthesize everything so that you come away with the knowledge of what we can provide as far as SASE is concerned and how we can help you along with your journey. And the reason probably why you are here in this webinar today is you want to try to understand how you can shift over from what is called the traditional campus-based network security model into a cloud-based SASE model. Just to give you a quick update on what Meraki is. So Meraki, we were founded in 2006, and the founders had the vision of creating 100% cloud managed network. So during that time, even now, no, even now, Cisco and the other providers, we provide networking, but you have a device called a controller that sits in your LAN that you use to remotely manage, monitor, and control all parts of your network. So when Meraki was founded in 2006, the vision is not to have a controller in the local area network, but rather have that controller in the cloud. Because the idea here is, number one, the cloud has unlimited scalability, and the other reason is because if you want to deploy your network across multiple locations within the country or all over the world in a wide geographical area, it is really not feasible to have a cloud controller on each part of your network. So why not, an on-premise controller, sorry about that. But why not use the cloud as the controller so that you can reach all of your parts, all of your network components in your entire network? So in 2012, Meraki was acquired by Cisco. So we still maintain two distinct uh, product areas, if you will, for networking that caters to the needs of different people, different customers. So if you want 100% simple, straightforward cloud networking, you go with Cisco Meraki. You can go with the Cisco Catalyst line if you would like to remain on-premise for whatever reason. So we cater to both type of customers. And we even have customers that usually have a mix of infrastructure between Catalyst and 100% Cisco Meraki Cloud Managed. We have over 4.1 million networks now running all over the world that runs on Meraki. 4.1 million networks. So it ranges from the small mom and pop shops, small and medium-sized businesses, all the way to large enterprises that have as much as 300,000 access points in one network all over the globe. So there's over 10 million Meraki devices online that's currently connected across this network, and it's representative of about 700,000 customers. We always try to maintain an SLA of 99.99% SLA because we are definitely a cloud service provider, so to speak. Our customers are completely dependent on our cloud platform to be able to manage their networks anytime, anywhere using a mobile device or using a browser network. Now, we are in the business of actually providing two major areas of solution. One is hybrid work, which also includes remote work, security, enabling our customers, users, and employees to be able to do hybrid work and remote work wherever they are, and also providing smart spaces and safe environments. So the focus of the webinar today is really about SASE, which enables and how it enables secure hybrid work and remote work. For us to enable this, our platform is actually composed of three very important components. The first one is what you see there in the bottom. It's really all the devices that you deploy at the endpoint. So we got the wireless access points. We've got switches, 100% cloud managed switching. We have the security and SD-WAN device for the Meraki MX. We will spend a lot of time talking about these devices and how we enable SASE using these devices. MG cellular gateways, which is used by our customers if they want to use 4G LTE and soon 5G internet as their primary connection to the internet. Our smart space technology is also powered by our Meraki smart cameras and our sensors, and we also have solutions that can do mobile device management using a solution called System Manager. Now, all of these, like I said, is 100% cloud managed. So we do not have any controllers on-prem. So you simply deploy these devices or deploy the agents of the software for SM, for example, and then make sure that these devices can be connected to the internet because the Meraki dashboard is completely accessible via the internet using a browser or using a mobile device. And you'll see a lot of demonstrations throughout this webinar so that you can understand what I mean. So which simplify the result is a more simplified and more straightforward IT infrastructure that's so easy to deploy and so easy to manage and so easy to update and monitor. Now, the third important part of our solutions is also our partner solutions. So we have hundreds of partners in the Meraki marketplace that have created applications in different use cases that work on top of our platform. And you can also custom build your own applications to run on top of our custom platform. We integrate with a lot of the Cisco portfolio. A bulk of this session will be talking about how we integrate with Cisco Umbrella, Cisco Duo, uh, but we also integrate with tightly integrate, and we have many customers who depend on Cisco ISE for the Cisco ISE for directory services. You will see later on that our built-in IDS and intrusion detection and intrusion prevention system in the MX device is actually using Cisco Snort. Our Cisco MX devices, which we are going to talk about later on, can also serve as the head end of your Cisco AnyConnect VPN clients, and so on and so forth. Now, on the right side, you will have a number of partners that have already created applications in many, many use cases, such as enabling smart spaces, hybrid work, safe environments, analytics marketing, and other categories. These are already built applications which our partners provide as a service, as a cloud service that is tightly integrated with our platform and is guaranteed to work with our platform. Okay, so let's start with enough of the introduction. So let's start the webinar content itself. So let's talk about SASE. So a lot of people are talking about SASE, but let's define SASE first and how we enable SASE for our customers and how you can take this journey into SASE yourself. So we call SASE as a bridge to your hybrid workforce. So today, a majority of organizations accommodate people who choose where they work, right? So they can work in the office, they can work at home, they can work anywhere. So the question is, how do we make sure that these individuals and these remote sites, maybe co-working sites or branches, are able to interconnect securely, use your applications, and be productive wherever and whenever they are. Now, the standard textbook definition of SASE is defined by Gartner, and I pasted that standard definition right here. It's an offering that is in emphasis on the blue portion of the definition. It's a comprehend that provides two things: comprehensive WAN capabilities with comprehensive network security functions to support the dynamic secure access needs of digital enterprises. So if you consider yourself a digital enterprise and if you have multiple branches, multiple users, applications that live on the cloud and in your data center, how the heck are you going to be able to secure all of that and ensure that you have consistent policies whatever device the user uses, wherever they choose to use these applications for? So what does this mean to you? This would probably be a typical network architecture that you've started from or you're currently in this situation. So you would have different branch offices that have employees, customers, and partners working there. They're connected to your campus into some sort of one connectivity method, such as MPLS, Internet, or IPVPN. You would have individual users that securely should connect to your campus via a VPN. They don't just simply connect to an open channel. You have to provide a virtual private network to take advantage of the internet that the commercial internet that they would have at home, and then use that commercial internet to establish a VPN channel, a secure channel between the user's location at home or office, or maybe in a mobile location, to the campus. And then you would also have branch offices that itself is capable of accepting VPN connections to the users and so on and so forth. Now, you have your data center, and you also are using applications that are living in the cloud. So this may be running on AWS, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, or what have you. You may also have your own private cloud in your own data center, or co-located in a commercial data center on a third party. And then add to that, you've got applications. You got SaaS applications such as Office 365, Google Workspace, Salesforce, and all of the others, or SA or your ERP system, HR system, may be a SaaS application as well, completely accessible over the internet. And you would have to allow all these applications that live on the cloud, in your private cloud, on your Office 365, in your different sub data centers, and also in your data center itself, to be accessed by users within the branch offices and wherever they are. Now, if you're in front of me, you probably are nodding your head and you're saying, "Yep, that's exactly what my network looks like right now." So it creates a number of problems. Number one is performance. Your campus becomes the bottleneck because everything radiates around the campus. Everybody connects to the campus. So if something goes wrong with the core network in your campus, or if the campus network suddenly becomes unsecured, then everybody's compromised. The second is visibility. You have difficulty in having full visibility of everything. You don't know what your users are doing. You don't know how the applications are being accessed. You don't know how the branch offices are connecting. So you might know connectivity up and down, the basic stuff, but in terms of the traffic, in terms of the type of applications, data, and secure and unsecure data that's passing through your network, you may be limited in terms of that visibility. Now, the fact that your network may be heterogeneous of different platforms, different vendors, makes it all the more difficult. The third thing is security. Your remote users present new security and performance challenges. Gone are the days where people actually go to the office and then do their work there, so you'll be able to secure them within the perimeters of your network in the office. But now users choose to work from anywhere. It poses a challenge. The device can be stolen, their passwords can be compromised. You don't know exactly what the users are doing, where they are. So you don't have, because you don't have visibility on the applications and how they access the applications, what type of data do they transmit and they download. And then finally, management. Inconsistent branch policies, for example, create risk. You don't have, you probably, it's your challenge to have a single policy that would be prevalent or be consistent across your entire enterprise. Now, here's what SASE looks like. SASE means that you use the scale and the power of the cloud to maintain and to provide not just one connectivity, but also a consistent set of specific security services that you can apply across workers, branch offices, and your campus. Now, there are many reasons why we want to move to this model. One reason is because of the shift to the cloud. All of our applications, if you look at through your corporate networks right now, there is this shift going to the cloud. So you've got applications that are being moved up to AWS, Azure, or GCP. And you also have applications that live in your data center. So both these applications need to be accessed securely. So why not use the common junction point of everyone, which is the internet, which is a cloud service, a SASE cloud service? So the result will be all users and networks will be protected, you have unified and centralized policies, and you avoid all the pitfalls in terms of inconsistent security management. So think of it as your secure cloud network fabric. If you unpack SASE, there are several sub-services, if you will. So let's call this the base service framework. On the secure services edge side, meaning this part of SASE, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Let me just use my pen. Maybe it's easier that way. On this part of SASE, this cloud part right here, you should have something called the Secure Services Edge. Then you would have things such as Secure Web Gateway, DNS security, remote browser isolation, and so on. These are cloud-borne services which are being managed by somebody like Cisco via a service called Umbrella, and we will talk more about that. That provides all of these services. So basically, taking away all of these services from your physical network, which used to run in the form of appliances, and putting it right here on top where everybody converges. Now, the other part of SASE is, of course, the WAN service of SD-WAN or software-defined WAN. So this means that your branch offices, your campus, and your remote networks are interconnected through the internet via VPN, via private VPN connections, which are automatically restored if, for example, they are disconnected. So that's called SD-WAN. But the underlying services such as quality of service, SLA, control, exchange of certificates, encryption is taken care of by the SD-WAN fabric. And to enable all of that, of course, is on-premise, you would have an SD-WAN device to enable all that connectivity. So as I showed you a while ago, the major use cases where why people, while organizations are moving into SASE is number one, we've got users that are connected to your applications in your data center and on the cloud that they're using the internet as the primary medium. And you don't want your users to use the internet as an open medium with little to no security. So that's why SASE uh, is being considered for secure internet access to the users. It's not just mere VPN, but also a myriad of other services that doesn't just protect the connection and encrypts it, but protects the users from bad actors to introduce things that such as malware or even disallowing the users to do things that they're not supposed to do on the network. The second use case is secure private access. This would be on the perspective of the assets of your company, whether your assets are applications or databases that are running on the cloud or the data center or on-premise. How do you protect these assets uh, for and ensure that you got secure access from your users wherever they are? And then the third use case is branch interconnection. So gone will be the days where your users or your branches will be interconnected using expensive WAN technologies such as MPLS. Now, I'll discuss this further later on, but if you think about it and if you look at the price of per gig or per meg of MPLS over time, per meg of internet that's delivered through channels such as methods such as DSL or broadband is actually becoming more and more cheap. So that's the shift to SD-WAN. So let's now talk about how do you do this with Meraki. Now, the first thing that we would need is to put in an appliance on premise. If I go back a few slides, remember this base SASE framework, we need SD-WAN on premise, and we also need SD-WAN on the cloud edge. So that is actually provided for on the Meraki standpoint by a device called the MX device. Okay, so we're the most trusted SD-WAN provider. It's 100% cloud managed, right? So when you deploy by our MX SD-WAN device on your locations in your data center, you use the Meraki dashboard to manage all of that. And I'll give you some demonstrations of that. Um, the devices, you have a choice of whatever device you want to put into your to your premises. Typically, in the data center, where you would want to have all your VPNs or your SD-WANs concentrated on, you would deploy something like an MX250 or an MX450. Now, the size of the device will depend on the number of users and perhaps the types of applications, but more so the number of users that would need to be serviced by this device behind it, right? So you've got for the campus or the data center, you've got concentrators. For your branches, you would have to deploy something like an MX67 or an MX68, or up to an MX75. Again, depending on the number of users that you have for each branch. There will be some models in the MX that actually can provide Wi-Fi as well. So one example here is the MX68CW. Okay, so this is, uh, let me give you an example of how this is what you see. We have one customer right here. They have a chain of convenience stores all over the Philippines. The way they connect the convenience stores to their to their data center is through SD-WAN. So in the data center, they have a couple of these MX450s, the MX450s. So they have this in their data center. In the branch, they would deploy an MXCW. Now, why an MXCW? Because it does not just provide SD-WAN connectivity to the data center, but it is also a wireless, a Wi-Fi access point for their POS and their mobile devices. It also provides, it's also a switch. I don't have the image here, but if you flip and if you see the back panel, there's actually 4 ports or 8 ports. So it's also a PoE switch as well. So it can power their other devices such as IP phones. And in case the primary internet fails for this boat, for so let's say the primary copper or fiber ISP fails, you've got a Cat6 LTE modem that can take over and then connect the branch through using 4G LTE. If you're asking about 5G, we'll soon come up with models with 5G as well. Now you will see that as part of the specs of the each of the devices, you also have firewall throughput. This is because it's not just an SD-WAN device, but it is a complete network security device for the branch. And I'll explain that later on. We have we also have another special device called the Meraki Z3. It's like as big as a typical mobile phone, like a slightly bigger than an iPhone 14, if you think about that. This became quite popular during the pandemic for our BPO and our finance customers. So the issue that this is trying to address is that if, for example, you have let's say the VP of a bank at home trying to connect to the bank's network via VPN. Now, the problem with software VPN is that you can trigger the software VPN manually. Now, the thing about this device, for one of our customers, for example, they deployed this to the network to the bank bigwigs. So in one of the VPs, they would have something like this. So the ISP connection would go over here, and then their device, their PC or their Mac would use a wired device because this also has 4 ports at the back. It's also Wi-Fi, and it also has a cellular backup. So if you get the Z3C model, it actually has a SIM card at the back, so you can put a 4G LTE device. So basically, once you connect any device to this device right here via Wi-Fi or web, it automatically already has a permanent VPN connection to the data center. So in other words, anything that's connected to this particular device at the VP's home is securely connected already to the bank network. So think of it as a extension of the bank network to the house of the bank vice president. So once you do that, not only do you have a secure VPN channel, but you can now apply other policies and traffic shaping if you want to. And I'll illustrate more of that later on. Now, one of the primary uses of the device is SD-WAN. So like I said before, the reason why people are shifting to SD-WAN is because MPLS is becoming more expensive, it's becoming impractical, and some telcos have actually stopped expanding MPLS because because simply because of the reason that they can generate more revenue using on internet. So that's why more and more investments are being poured to broadband, fiber, and cellular. And because of the investments that are poured into these three modes, broadband, fiber, and cellular, it becomes pervasive. So even in the provinces where you don't have MPLS, you have internet. So it may not be fiber, it may be copper, it may be cellular, but you have internet. The point here is that internet is everywhere. So why not take advantage of the prevalence of the internet and just simply create a software-defined one on top of the internet as a transport so that these branches and the users can interconnect with you directly, connect with you directly. The other fact is SD-WAN, because it's software defined, you can do a lot more things about it. So you can do things such as um, monitoring the traffic, controlling the type of traffic, controlling the type of data that passes through your SD-WAN. So for example, we've got customers who say that, oh, across my SD-WAN, I am not going to allow access to these types of websites. But at the same time, I'm going to give more priority to um, I'm going to give my more priority to, say, for example, voice over IP or traffic to salesforce.com or traffic to Office 365. So you can basically do that on SD-WAN very easily because you can use the power of the dashboard to do traffic shaping. The other things, like I mentioned a while ago, and it's written here in this slide, that influences the move to SD-WAN is cloud traffic is becoming more and more cloud centric. You've got applications that are now being hosted on IaaS. You've got users and remote branches. And because of that, remote users and remote branches require access directly to the internet. And you can also provide advanced analytics. Sorry, I forgot to mention, if I go back a few slides, is that if you've got applications that actually are in Azure, like Office 360, so not in Azure, AWS or GCP that runs on virtual machines, we actually have a virtual appliance called the VMX, that a virtual appliance, you install the image on an appropriately sized virtual machine on AWS, Azure, Alibaba, or GCP, or even on-premise on Cisco UCM if you have this. So this could allow you to extend your SD-WAN to applications that live on the cloud. Now, inside the Meraki MX, this is also a firewall. It's also an intrusion detection, intrusion prevention device. It is also an advanced malware protection device. And all of that is powered by Talos and all of the Cisco security capabilities that you see here. So once you deploy your MX in your data centers, you get an MX450 right here. Remember, it doesn't just provide SD-WAN capability, but it is also an enterprise firewall. You can do URL filtering. You can do it's also an anti-malware. It's also an intrusion prevention and intrusion detection services, and it provides secure cloud connectivity. The moment you deploy MX on the branches, in whether it's in your branch, it's in your colo facility, or your sites, your users in the case of Z3C, in the case of the Z3, your branches with the use of the smaller MX device, or your larger branches using the bigger MX device. Now you don't just have MX, these security capabilities on your branches and your users as well, but now you have SD-WAN. Now everything from the ensuring tunnel resiliency, encryption, optimization, traffic management, traffic shaping is all done within the SD-WAN fabric. Now, let me show you a demonstration of what I mean. I'm going to shift over to my browser and give you a live demonstration of the dashboard. So I'll go to dashboard.meraki.com, which is the primary portal where our users manage their Meraki-powered networks. So the first thing that you would show here so this is an internal only, it's a splash screen that shows me of the um, all of our customers. These little dots, these green dots are actually showing all of our customers all over the world. Okay, now let me just try to access our Meraki Corp. Now, Meraki, we are a global organization, which we're still part of Cisco, but we have offices all over the world. Our main office is in San Francisco, but we have also offices in Chicago as well. So it shows you the map of our locations all over the world. So we got offices in Australia, Korea, United Kingdom, Poland, and this is in San Francisco. Now you will immediately see in this dashboard that there are some networks, if you will, that have a little bit of a problem. So here in San Francisco, we have 26 networks and we have 888 devices. One or a few of those devices are actually experiencing some sort of minor issue. That's why it's colored yellow. So let me just go straight into the San Francisco network, which we call SFO12. Now, all of our Meraki sites are interconnected together via SD-WAN. Okay, so they're interconnected together um, via SD-WAN. So I don't have enough time to demonstrate all of the capabilities of the dashboard. So I'm going to go straight away into security and SD-WAN and show you site-to-site VPN. So remember, I am in the San Francisco network. Now, the way our SD-WANs are put together is that all of our offices are called spokes, or all of your branches would call a spoke, and then they interconnect, they connect to San Francisco. So if I had a whiteboard, I'd show you that there are several models for SD-WAN. You may have a single hub, it may be your data center, and all of your branches are connecting, or which are called the spokes, are connecting to this hub. You may have a mesh configuration where each branch is connected to other branches without a single hub in between. But in our case, we decided to uh, do a hub and spoke model. So our San Francisco, since this is our headquarters, this is our hub. You will see the different networks that are enabled for to allow that are allowed access to the SD-WAN. Right. So these are all of the networks within the San Francisco office, and you can also see which remote VPN participants are there. Okay. Now, if let's say, for example, I have a new office. Say, for example, I established a new office somewhere in the world. Once that network is up, I can click on Add a Hub and then select that office right here. So let's say I choose Meraki London, Finsbury. Now, once I save this, I'm not gonna save this because this is our production network. So you've got all the settings here. So once I save this, I'm basically telling San Francisco that, hey, I'm going to add London Finsbury, and there's an MX appliance out there that's going to be a spoke. So you remain as a hub, but there's going to be a spoke. So on the other side, I'm gonna exit this. I'm gonna go over to London Finsbury. So now I'm managing the London Finsbury network. Okay. So once this refreshes, I'm now in London Finsbury. I go back to SD-WAN and I go site-to-site VPN. And then you will notice that London Finsbury is also a hub, but let's pretend that this is a branch. So if I say this is a spoke, I would have to add a hub and then select the San Francisco appliance. Now, what did I just do? I went to the spoke and tell the spoke that, hey, this MX needs to connect to the MX in San Francisco because that's the hub. Once I save this, everything happens in the background magically. So all the interconnectivity, all the certificate exchanges, all the encryption, all the SD-WAN management is done in the background. And in a few minutes, you will now start seeing your VPN connection. Let me go back to San Francisco um, and then show you what else we can do. We just leave. Let me just leave and not save this because this is a production system. Okay, now I've just demonstrated, hopefully you can use your imagination a bit, that I've just established an SD-WAN connection between a hub and a spoke. Now, what else can I do here? First, I can actually see, for example, I can check the firewall because remember, the SD-WAN is also, the SD-WAN device, the MX device is also a security device. So I can enable layer 3 firewall, so you can set up your policies right here. You can also have layer 7 rules. For example, you can choose, if I choose a layer 7 rule and I say for sports, I am not going to allow ESPN video streaming in my SD-WAN. So you can put that as a policy. Forwarding rules are right here. NAT rules are right here as well, and so on. Right. So notice that during the course of this demonstration, I've never used the command line interface. Everything is using the dashboard. Another useful feature is SD-WAN and traffic shaping. So for example, if I go to SD-WAN and traffic shaping, once this refreshes, you will be able to see, like for example, in San Francisco, I have two WAN links. So I can, for example, do the slider over here and say I want to use all 6 gigabits, or I just want to use some portion of the bandwidth for WAN 1. I can also take a look at, I can also have global preferences. So for example, I'll prioritize WAN 1 first, and I'll do, and then I can enable or disable load balancing between these two WANs. I can set up my flow preferences, and I can also, again, do traffic shaping rules. So for example, if I want to prioritize voice over traffic, I would do it here. The other things I can do is threat protection. So remember, this is also enabling. Um, we also have advanced malware protection. So you can allow URLs. You can put in your whitelist URL list over here. You can enable threat grid if you are subscribed to that. What else? You can do also content filtering. So if you go to content filtering, not much you can do about here because you can just simply enable content filtering to allow um, threat grid to take over and filter all the contents that's passing through. Now, of course, you can do category blocking as well. So in our case, we said that we wanted to block adult pornography, child abuse content, spam, botnet, and so on and so forth. You can do URL filtering right here, right? Now, once you've already set up your VPNs or your SD-WAN network, you can also take a look at VPN status. And once you look at VPN status, it will give you a kind of a general picture of what your SD-WAN looks like. Connectivity, the way it's connected, the current latency, how this San Francisco network is currently connected to each of the hubs, right? So what's the latency? You can actually see here, everything is green and go, but once you see a red bar, at some point in the past, perhaps there was a disconnection on the SD-WAN. So you can see it right there. And then finally, you can actually configure the device itself. So if I go to appliance status, I'm still in the San Francisco network, so it will show me what the appliance currently looks like. So this is an MX450. These are the ports that are currently used. So the MX50 has actually a large number of ports. So you can see the network usage. I can see the uplink statistics. So in this case, my MX actually has two uplinks from two different data set after from two different ISPs. I can see the IP address. I can see the WAN traffic and isolate each one, historical device data for both latency and loss. Other things, I can cycle the power. Since this is an MX40, it actually has dual redundant power supplies. So I can see the status of the power right here. And I also have other tools such as pinging. So if there's something wrong with this device and I have doubts on whether it can reach the internet, I can ping another IP address or a domain name. I can do trace routes and so on and so forth. Okay. I apologize if I rush through that demonstration because we still have a lot of ground to cover. So that's the MX cloud device. So just to summarize, the MX that just provides SD-WAN connectivity, very straightforward, very simple, using a drop and down interface, but it is also an enterprise security appliance that can protect not just your data center, your core network, your campus network, but also your branch networks as well. Now, you've already established your SD-WAN. Now remember, the other part of SASE is the secure services edge. So this is where these services can come in. And then this is another part of secure service is zero trust network access. So let's now go to that part of SASE, secure services edge, SSE. Now what is SSE? No, if we took it, if SD-WAN, if SASE is actually a combination of SD-WAN cloud security and zero trust, then SSE is a combination of cloud security and ZTNA. The reason why we actually sell SSE separately as a service right here, it is because we have a number of customers who do not use our SD-WAN technology. So you may use a different vendor's SD-WAN technology. So you don't use Cisco, you don't use Meraki for SD-WAN, but you could definitely use our SSE solutions on top of your own SD-WAN. So going back to this diagram, let's take a look at Umbrella first. Now, what does Umbrella do? These are all the things that Umbrella will do. DNS layer security. We'll take a look at each of these components right now. And I'll try to explain it as simple as possible so that you can understand the value of each of these components. Now, Cisco Umbrella started as a secure internet gateway or SIG. It provides DNS layer security. Now, if you think about it, one of the first, if not one of the most vulnerable parts of network access is DNS. The moment you try to access a service, let's say from a browser, you go to www.cisco.com. A DNS service will have to interpret that Cisco.com into an IP address that your browser can use to connect to that IP address, to connect to presumably what is the Cisco.com website. Now, what if there's the DNS is a bad actor or somebody inserted something inside that says that Cisco.com is actually a different IP address. And then you go to that IP address, going to that website that pretends to be the Cisco website. Now a phishing attack has just happened. Everybody uses DNS. 91% of malware is using DNS as a central attack point. A lot of organizations, you don't even monitor DNS. You got just a DNS name server right there, and it just blindly interprets URLs to IP address, but you never know whether the IP address that's being returned is the right one or not. So it just makes sense. I mean, to us, DNS security just makes sense. It will block domains associated with malware. So it knows from a big database, Talos, our network security intelligence service, the biggest privately owned one in the world, continuously builds a database of all of these bad IP addresses that contain malware and all the bad stuff, phishing, command and control callbacks everywhere. And basically, this part of Cisco Umbrella tells you do not go to that IP address because that IP address is found to be a malicious IP address. It's very, very simple to deploy. There's no appliance. You just simply configure your Meraki MX device to use Umbrella or your third-party SD1 or device to use Umbrella. And that's it. So what happens here is that every time you make a connection to a URL, that request goes to Umbrella first. Umbrella then takes a look at whether it's a safe request or a block request. If it's a safe request, then the correct IP address is sent to you. That's it. Now, Cisco Talos has taken a look at the ASEAN enterprises and found all of 15.25 million malicious requests with 10 threat types. Okay, so there are 537 top malicious domains. So so this basic capability of Umbrella Secure Internet Gateway, we protect you from all of that. Now, that's just one of many things that Umbrella can do. The other thing that Umbrella can do is that it is a secure web gateway. What does that mean? It takes a look at the URL that you're trying to access for content control. It takes a look at it. So it says, wait, browser, before I give you anything, I'm going to look at the website to see if it's a legit website. Does it have malware? Does it have SSL encryption? Is the certificate legit? Is the application legit, etc., etc.? All of that is being done as SWG, right? So the software it enforces web traffic policy. So if, for example, you get a simple web traffic policy that says that you cannot access any website that doesn't have HTTPS. That's the simplest policy that I can think of. SWG can do it. It can go as more advanced policies as you go along. Umbrella also does what is called browser isolation. Now, what is browser isolation? Think of it this way. If you got a web browser that's trying to connect to some sort of resource, whether it's a website or an application in the internet or it's a SaaS application, the normal way of doing it is that the content will immediately download to your web browser and then you go ahead and do whatever you want with that website. But RBI, what it does is that it works with Secure Web Gateway to first check whether the website is, well, first it goes to SIG to check whether the website is legit and the IP address is correct. Then it goes to SWG to check whether there's malware, the application is running okay, it doesn't violate any policy. Then it creates a virtual browser in the internet, and all the content from the URL that you're trying to access runs on that isolated browser. If everything checks out fine, then that's the only time it gets to your web browser. Does it add latency? Yeah, but does it add security? Absolutely. That's what RBI does. Umbrella also does something called Cloud Access Security Broker. Now, what is Cloud Access Security Broker? Here's an analogy. There's something, we have a term called shadow IT. What's shadow IT? These are users who try to use unsanctioned applications outside of work. Give you an example. So let's say in your network, you do not allow access to Dropbox. So I'm in here in the office. I'm trying to send you an email. I'm trying to send you an email with a big attachment. It won't send. So I say, okay, I will put it on Dropbox and I'll send you my Dropbox links. And then from there, you can download it. Now, the office policy is that you're not allowed to do that. No problem. I unhook my PC. I go to my, I put the file on the thumb drive. I go to my home PC, which is not connected to the network at all. Go to my personal OneDrive, go to my personal um, cloud drive. I upload it there, and I just bypass the company policy. Now, what CASB actually does is that it maintains and understands and has visibility to over 25,000 web applications and understands the risk and application insight. So what happens is that if you have a policy that does not allow users to access OneDrive or Dropbox, it's going to be the same policy anywhere the user goes, regardless of what connection to the internet that they have. Because that policy is applied, is enforced in Umbrella in the cloud. That's what CASB does. Not only that, we also have Umbrella Data Leakage Protection, or DLP. A lot of text over here, but let me give you an example of what this is. So let's say, for example, you've got a Excel file um, that's supposed to be encrypted, that has your salary information, right? Now, according to your policy, that Excel file is now only to be sent to people from the same team as you are, your finance team. How do you make sure that that implementation, that policy gets enforced? One way is through the use of DLP. Now, what Umbrella DLP does is that it does not matter whether you are using Microsoft Word or some other open source, so it's basically Umbrella right there saying, hey, user A wants to send this Excel file. They uploaded it on OneDrive, or they uploaded it on a legit cloud, or maybe Dropbox is legal in your office, whatever. Before it gets uploaded up there, the file is actually inspected first for things such as whether it's encrypted, does it have keywords, does it have credit card numbers. You've got 80 plus built-in data classifiers. You can put in custom keywords, and all of these things. Umbrella checks it first before the files actually get transmitted to the service where you want to send it to, whether it's email and Office 365 or Google Workspace, whether it's Dropbox or whatever, or even standard file sharing protocols. There's a specific, I know that Office 365 is very popular and it's the top collaboration platform in the world right now. CASB also can detect threats sitting on Office 365 OneDrive. So as far as Meraki is concerned, so think of this scenario. You now have your Meraki branches, your users, and your data centers, and your cloud applications connected via SD-WAN, right? So each one is now protected with their own firewalls, but you can also, what if, for example, you've got a user that's outside of your SD-WAN. They're trying to do VPN. So they're doing, for example, Cisco AnyConnect VPN, which is okay, which is going to work because Meraki SD-WAN headends can also become a headend for AnyConnect. How are you going to apply consistent policies all over, whether it's a user in the branch itself, the user in the office, the user in their homes or the remote network? So Umbrella protects all of that, right? Right, great. So I hope that quick explanation of what Umbrella does is useful for you. Now let's go to the of the third part of the SASE triumvirate, if you will, Duo. Okay, so what is Duo? Duo is multi-factor authentication. It's not just multi-factor authentication, but adaptive MFA. It also does what is called device posture and health. It provides, or it enforces least privilege access, and it also has behavior analytics. This is a service that's provided for by Cisco. It can work. It can work separately. So even if you're using an SD-WAN solution that's not Cisco, or if you're not using Umbrella, this is going to work. How does it work? So Duo provides zero trust for your workforce by protecting applications, users, and devices. It provides access control policies and visibility, and it enforces that primarily because 81%, a huge majority of security risk persists with traditional MFA. So passwords can be stolen, credential, and then so passwords can be stolen, passwords can be. So we all know the weaknesses of passwords. So to protect us against security leakages or security risks because of stolen passwords, we have multi-factor authentication. So after you enter your password, Duo would send a message to your device that you have with you, whether it's a wearable or whether it's a mobile phone. So the mobile phone, which runs your Duo application, will pop up and say, hey, you're trying to access a resource, whether it's a network, whether it's a database, whether it's an application, whether it's VPN, or any type of resource that Duo can protect. And Duo is saying, you have to prove who you are by either clicking or tapping yes on your mobile phone that you are this person, or and then you are trying to access this resource at this particular moment in time. Or there's another way for you to use, let's say, biometrics. If your phone is capable of biometrics like Face ID or thumbprint, or it will randomly send you a 4-digit or a 6-digit number that you need to enter on your phone before you get access to that device. Right. So why do I emphasize on wearables and phones? Because everybody has a phone. You never are without your phone. Or if you're using a an Apple Watch or any other dual supported device, whether I think some Samsung wearables are also supported. It's also on your person, right? So you have no excuse not to do MFA because it's always there. It's an easy second step. It takes second. It's just it takes barely 1 or 2 seconds to go through that second factor. However, if you do not have a wearable or a device that would receive dual notifications, you can even receive a phone call. That's another option. So we have one customer who said, whenever you try to access the network, your phone will ring and an automated voice will come in and say, hey, we just received a username and password. You're trying to access this resource, this network, this VPN. Prove that you are who you are by number one, answering this phone call and entering this pin on the phone call, and then you put down the phone and then you continue access. We can also support hardware tokens, and we can also do SMS. Now, this is how do you enroll devices on Duo? It's very easy, self-enrollment. So it's self-enrollment. Users can download the Duo device on the Duo application on the stores of their choice, whether it's the Apple Store for iOS devices or Google Play for Android devices. So you can see different ways over here. Now you can also display, for example, a splash screen to the application and say, hey, in order for you to access this device or this application or this network, you have to install Duo first. And you can provide, for example, a QR code that people can scan and then automatically it's down there. Now, usually we get a question at this point, how is this different from MDM? It's not MDM. It's simply using your device as a second factor or other than your username and your password, plus another one for multi-factor authentication. Now, remember when I said that Duo also that also assesses the health and the security posture of your device. What is an example of that? Let's say you have a policy that any device that connects to the network must have the latest iOS version or the latest Android version. You can enforce that by using Duo. So let's say if I was using an iPad to connect to a VPN and then Duo on the iPad sees that my iOS is not updated, then my access is denied. I cannot access until I I update the iOS on my iPad, presumably because security will be heightened once I install once I update the iOS version. So how does Duo gather visibility? It takes a look at mobile browsers through the Duo mobile applications. And for laptops and desktops, there's also a Duo Health application. Now, on the other side, on the administration side, you can actually get visibility via a dashboard, very similar to how Meraki does it. where you can see things such as how many Windows devices are trying to connect, how many Mac OS devices, how many are um, are up to date as far as their security is concerned. Um, what are the iOS devices that are currently, what are the iOS versions that are currently installing, and so on. How many authentications are allowed and disallowed. Now, as far as device posturing and health, it can take a look at all of these things on the left: laptop and desktop, security, health. They can check devices before they log in. So on the right side is what you actually see on the device. It gives you a visually, it shows you what it is actually checking on your device before it is actually sent, before access is given to you. Once you're okay, then you can then access the resource. Now, what resource? You can also do user-based policies. So one common user-based policies that we see is things such as geolocation. If I'm trying to access for example, a resource in our data center, an application in our data center, but I am actually in the office network, you can actually say, don't challenge the user using Duo because you're already in the office network. However, if that user is outside of the office network, let's say they're at home or some other network, then Duo will kick in and say, since you're outside of the office network, I'm going to have to challenge you for multi-factor authentication. So you can do that based on geolocation, IP address, user enrollment status, or even devices which are not enrolled. What I'm gonna I'm gonna power through these slides because we've run out of time, or we're running out of time. So what type of applications? So it can be applications that are living in AWS, Azure, or GCP. You can also do device-based policies. So, for example, you can put in Duo, I'm not going to allow certain versions of iOS, or I'm not going to allow certain versions of Android. I'm not going to allow Flash, any device that has Flash installed, because apparently it's a security risk. I also want to check. I also am going to do not allow users to authenticate if their mobile device is locked. Those details can actually be configured right there. So what are the use cases? Apps, SaaS applications, Dropbox, Salesforce, Office 365. There are hundreds of apps that are currently out there right now that support Duo as an authentication method um, with little to no customization required. VPN. So not only do we support Cisco VPN, but also these other platforms as well. So if you're using VPNs that are not Cisco, that is any of these platforms, and you want to secure using multiple factor authentication, then you can use Duo as well. BYOD for cloud applications, such as what you see here. Even SSH. Now, this actually quite caught me by surprise. I've actually seen a demonstration of this where uh, a user was trying to access an application using the SSH method, but before that, they were actually challenged by Duo. Interesting. Remote desktop, cloud server access on IaaS, and so on. So even, for example, individual databases, any resource that you can think of, we will most probably be able to um, uh, uh, protect that using Duo. Sorry, I'm going to stop screen sharing for a while because I'm going to skip a number of slides. And also check for any questions that may have left unanswered. Okay. I don't think we are. Okay, let me just share again my screen so that we can end. Okay, so the final piece of SASE is observability or visibility. So we have a solution called Thousand Eyes. It's a multifaceted solution, but we have decided to put a small portion of Thousand Eyes into the MX, which will show you this. In Meraki, you have one capability of Thousand Eyes called Internet Outages Overview. What does it show? It shows you, for example, if I was trying to access, or a user is trying to access Office 365, of which the servers are in Microsoft data centers, and if the user is saying that I am having a hard time accessing Office 365, I cannot access Teams, or my voice is choppy, my email is slow, and so on and so forth. The question is, where is the problem? Is it in the user ISP? Is it in your upstream network connectivity? Or is it on Office 365 itself? Or is it individual networks of multiple telcos in the middle of the connection between the user and Office 365? This one will show you that. So you know who to blame, you know who to call. So if it turns out to be an upstream internet issue, you may want to pick up the phone and call the ISP and say, hey, our users are having a problem connecting to Office 365, and I have in my Thousand Eyes screen showing that latency between your network and Office 365 peering point is so slow, you might want to fix that. It may be a routing issue on your side. Okay, so to round it up, if you think about it, SASE is your bridge to a hybrid workforce. We are a proven leader in networking and security. We protect 100% of the Fortune 500. We have number one in cybersecurity market share, and we spend over $1 billion annually in security investments. So I guess the key point here, now that you've known about the different components of what SASE is, SD-WAN, Secure Services Edge, and then visibility, you actually don't need to implement all of that all at the same time. You can do SASE your way. Let me give you an example. So let's say, for example, you don't have anything. You can start with SD-WAN. You can acquire MX through Meraki, and you've seen how simple it is to implement. Start with SD-WAN. Once you already have SD-WAN, maybe you can then put in zero trust authentication like Duo, because that's more important for you. Now, the good thing about Umbrella and Duo is that you don't even need, it doesn't even require Cisco as the underlying SD-WAN component. We have plenty of customers who chose to go a different path and use a different SD-WAN solution, but still use the secure services, edge services such as CASB, secure web gateway, firewall, web delivered firewall through Umbrella, and provide multi-factor authentication and device posturing and security using Cisco Duo. Not a problem, right? So you can do that. And then you can probably choose to replace your SD-WAN later on. Now, on phase three, which is already available now, we've already announced that we are going to make all of these services available as a monthly per user service, as a service consumption, with the exception, I think, of hardware, which you still have to acquire upfront. So Umbrella and the licensing for Umbrella and Cisco Duo is as a service. Meraki remains to be a license and hardware model where you acquire the hardware and you pay for the license to run the SD-WAN and all the security capabilities. But soon we're going to combine all of that and then provide that as a completely as a service consumption model. So you may want to wait for that, or if you're already using SD-WAN together with Umbrella and Cisco Duo, you can choose to move to as a service consumption later on. So that's it. This is your entire picture. If there's one screenshot you may want to take, you can take this one. Okay, so SASE for us means SD-WAN, on-premise security using the MX appliances, not just for SD-WAN, but also facilitating security. You've got the secure services edge that provides all of these capabilities via Umbrella and zero trust network access using Duo multi-factor authentication. And then to wrap around all of that, uh, Thousand Eyes visibility over your network. Okay, so Cisco SASE, we enable the hybrid workforce. We aim to lower your overall IT spend because you want to do SASE at your pace. I just don't have time to actually talk about how you break down the umbrella services. Actually, the umbrella services, some of those services you can subscribe to individually or as a whole. We can talk about that later on or offline, how you want to do that. So you basically not just secure your workers wherever they are, but you also increase their worker productivity while at the same time reducing your security risk. At the end of this webinar, if you'd like to try any of the solutions presented, whether it's Meraki MX, Cisco Umbrella Duo, we just didn't have time to talk about System Manager, which is our MDM solution. Just send me an email and then we can get together with a partner to give you a trial on any of these solutions. So that's it. Thank you very much for joining us for joining me today. I'm going to stop the sharing and see if there's any questions that are in the slide.
All right. I think the questions were addressed already by Drea Hearns. So
Okay.
for those who joined late, we will be sending a recording of this session along with the thank you email. But if you are requesting another round of this specific to your company, the SASE presentation by Hearns, please let us know. Please reach out to Drea and Hearns so we can arrange a private presentation fit for your company. All right. Thank you everyone for attending, and we'll see you all in the next Meraki webinar. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you very much, everyone. See you soon. Bye.